20 pages in Google Docs, and you're like,
Hell yeah.
oh no, why did I give you carte blanche? But yeah, it's been going good. Everyone should check that out. I did loads of stuff over at startmenu.co.uk. Jeff was on there, Jan was on there, Sean was on there, and that troublemaker Mitch Tolkoto was on there too.
I think everyone did a really good job. I was really happy with a lot of the stuff I read over there. So yeah, definitely well done.
Yeah, and thanks to the Giant Bomb community for the lovely comments on the bits that they saw too. That was really nice to see.
Awesome. Fantastic. How's it going otherwise? You said you're arguing with your college? What the hell does that mean?
Apparently, two of my lectures two of my modules take place at the same time now, and now I have to change modules, and they're saying like, oh, you might not have enough credits. And I'm like,
oh, boy.
Awesome. Thanks. You couldn't have told me this when I signed up for the modules. That would have been really helpful. Anyway... couple more months.
Yep,
and then I'm fucking done.
Couple more months. Well, good
and
luck.
A grandparent asked me if I was gonna do a master's or something, and I actually laughed at them. It's like, I'm sorry, no. Once I'm done, I'm fucking gone.
Yeah, my 2024 has started with I went to a Lions game yesterday. I went to watch my team in Detroit. It was a quick drive actually to go from Cleveland up there, and. Yeah, that was awesome because they won. They're the 2 seed in the they were the 2 seed for a couple hours there in the NFC, but yeah, they dropped down to the 3rd seed. They're going to be playing the Los Angeles Rams, which has their old quarterback. That the Lions had a quarterback that was really great for like 12 seasons, and then he left to go win a Super Bowl with another team, and now he's coming back, and we have to have a showdown with him. So cool storyline, but. Very excited as a Lions fan over here. And so I had a good time, good weekend. It was cool to be back up in Michigan for a little bit as well.
I'm curious. I know that baseball, there's a lot of downtime, but American football, as a European, it always seems like there's a lot of downtime too. When you watch those games, when you're in the crowd, does it feel like you have a lot of downtime?
No,
between plays and shit?
No, because you're it's very similar. Well, it's the one that has a ton of downtime is baseball, but that's kind of built into understanding yeah, the play is, 10 seconds, not even because it's sometimes the ball just goes right out and it's like a 1 second play. So you kind of sit around, you're shooting the shit and you're drinking. In football, you are a little bit more engaged with what is happening for preparation on the field. You're looking down to see who's getting subbed in and how they're preparing the formations, and you're trying to keep track of what's the yardage? They have 2 yards to go, and you're kind of looking down, seeing all right, it's like a build. Each time it crescendos with the play and then it drops back down and then it builds back up. So you're a little bit more engaged during that downtime. But yeah, I get what people mean when they're like, oh, it's like a sport that's just always going. That's fine if that's your preference.
You're totally right. Another reason Yakuza 5 is not a 40 out of 40 from Famitsu is because it made me try to learn the rules of baseball, and fuck that.
Yeah, I don't blame you for that one. Yeah, listen, unless you learn baseball as a kid, I don't think you'll ever learn baseball. Just ignore it. I think it's probably the same for cricket, I believe. All right, you know what? We should get into this and explain what we do here. Most weekdays, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mass Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into. I said the thing. So let's start the morning mess with rumors suggest Xbox is bringing more games to Nintendo Switch and PS5. But what's the truth? This comes from Jez Corden at Windows Central. Over the past few days, rumors began to swirl that Microsoft is, once again, exploring bringing first-party Xbox games to competing platforms. For anyone keeping score, it wouldn't be without precedent. With the Activision Blizzard deal in the bag, Microsoft is effectively becoming one of the biggest quote-unquote third-party publishers on PlayStation and Steam already, with games like Call of Duty, Minecraft, Diablo, etc., distributed wholly under the Microsoft umbrella. This latest rumor mill doesn't pertain to that, though. Historically, console sales have revolved around the arbitrary gatekeeping of exclusive content. There's no reason why God of War or Super Mario Bros. Wonder couldn't run on Xbox, PC, or whatever else, but publishers don't bring it to other systems because they want you in their ecosystem. Even Apple has started doing this. Times are changing, though, so let's dig into the latest rumors and examine the likelihood of them being true. A few days ago, Nate the Hate suggested on his podcast that an acclaimed Game of the Year worthy Xbox exclusive will be becoming imminently available on a competing console platform. Nate has a good track record of accuracy in the past, with which created a groundswell of speculation over what the game could possibly be. Later, someone on Reset Era who has a good track record said they believe in so many words, they said they believe it's Hi-Fi Rush on the Switch, which I think makes a lot of sense. It lines up with what Nate is saying in terms of a game that was in the Game of the Year conversation at the very least.
Starfield certainly wasn't.
Definitely not, yes. And I mean, it's hard to think about. I mean, maybe Pentiment. Pentiment could make sense. I think it's a similar level and a game that I would definitely put in my Game of the Year conversation. But Hi-Fi Rush, it like makes even more sense on a lot of levels. Also, it's the kind of game where I think it fits with the strategy of, we'll let it go somewhere else. It started off as a multi-platform game, probably, and we want to continue investing in the studio. We want to continue investing in this franchise. So let's put it out somewhere else, and then we'll have the sequel come out, and that will be Xbox exclusive again. Does all that sound plausible to you?
I mean, it sounds plausible in the sense that, games of a similar size, Ghostwire and Deathloop and Bethesda as well, came to PlayStation, but that's because they were already part of PlayStation deals. So, I mean, this feels like kind of a bellwether moment for Xbox's strategy going forward. Because when you think about it from like a traditional console point of view or traditional like gaming console point of view, there was no reason why Hi-Fi Rush would go to anything other than Xbox and PC, as they've been doing everything. But if Hi-Fi goes to PC or goes to PS4 and Switch, then that's basically, we could make exceptions all day long for why Minecraft came to other things, of why, Minecraft Dungeons came to other things, and why things that, like, were fostered into the Xbox family after the fact, why Call of Duty is still coming to PlayStation. But Hi-Fi is something that's been developed internally, has been, like, incubated internally, and, like, is a game that, for all intents and purposes, is a Microsoft initiative. Nothing about it has ever said PlayStation, and there was never really any expectation of it coming to PlayStation. So, I think if we saw it come, I think we'd start to see stuff like Ori, would start to see all those other mid-sized Xbox games, Pentiment, like you said, start to slowly make their way over. And, like, personally, as someone that mainly uses my PS5 and enjoys playing things on the PS5, I'd be fine with that. Mm-hmm. I know that weirdos will be fucking very angry about it. But also, now that Xbox have made their big Activision deal, do you think there's any bit of them that's like, okay, do we now have to show that there's like proof in the pudding and like show to regulators, hey, no, we are going to keep on sharing our games?
I bet there's always some of that in the background, but I don't think that's the main motivator here. I think it's and I don't know if this is necessarily like a sign of a change in global strategy for how they approach Xbox going forward. It seems like it might just be a case-by-case thing, and they're like, what's the best thing for Hi-Fi Rush? Well, it would be nice to make a little bit more money, and it would be nice to raise that franchise's profile a little bit, because listen, I know that they really like Tango Gameworks at Microsoft, and they are growing that studio. These things are things that are true, have been told to me, and that came out like in the wake of Hi-Fi Rush. And then at the same time, Hi-Fi Rush could have made more money. Like it would have been, they would have loved if that game just straight up made more money than it did. And it, of course it was on Game Pass, and they were happy with it. They're definitely happy with that studio. I think they're like, what can we do to sort of juice Tango Gameworks? What can we do to raise the profile of Hi-Fi Rush? And I think this is a card that they're willing to play sometimes. Now, does that mean like we could expect it across the board? Well, I mean, I think like the original Ori already came to PlayStation, right? It's definitely on Switch, but it's been in a lot of places. It's definitely on Switch, and I think Ori and the Will of the Wisps, the second one, that could happen eventually as well. But that was always made by like a third-party studio that had a first-party deal with Microsoft, and then Microsoft eventually might be like, hey, you know what? You did a great job. If you want to go make more money by putting that in more places, or you want our help with that, we're fine with that. I think that's Microsoft trying to be like the good guy to the partners it partners with. In this case, I think it's probably just a card they're playing in a case-by-case situation. Now, the thing that would surprise me is like, well, then how come for games that make a lot of sense to be on multi-platform, the live service games, I get it. Halo Infinite, Halo going to other platforms would be really weird, and they would have a hard time selling that to their fans. But Sea of Thieves, that's the one that...
Hello.
Hi, Mike. You got something to say about Ori, I'm assuming?
Yeah, both of those are on Switch already. None of them are on PlayStation. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. That's right. Okay, there we go. So the like Sea of Thieves, right? I'll say I've heard that was one that might be coming to other platforms. So when I first started hearing these rumors, I was like, oh, this is probably about Sea of Thieves, because I've heard that could come to Switch and PlayStation. And maybe that might be the kind of thing where it's like actually all of this stuff is happening and Microsoft is trying to like rejigger its strategy. And that kind of comes back to the point that you were making that we should expect more of this. Does that sound right? Oh, you're muted. Oh, or the mic's broken. That's okay. Take your time. And while I go ahead and read the rest of this, forum user low. I don't actually know how to say this name. Also backed up the claims recently in a reply to a commenter saying Hi-Fi Rush available on Nintendo Switch. I'll bet they said, and you'll win. So that's kind of the thing. And I think we got Lexi back.
Yeah. I think it's interesting what they're choosing to bring, because if it was, let's say it's Sea of Thieves down the line, and let's say it's Hi-Fi Rush now or whatever, those seem like things that are very much so console sellers. Like, they're the types of exclusives that they can push in their ads that are very evocative and stand out as, oh, this is something you can only play on Xbox, or you can only play on, Xbox services. So I think it's interesting that those are the games that they're bringing. Those, not single player in the case of Sea of Thieves, but like a single player game like Hi-Fi Rush being the choice of something to bring somewhere else.
Yes. Yeah. Because we look at PlayStation strategy and they're kind of being open like, hey, for live service stuff, we're going to bring that in a lot of places. Now, that doesn't mean Xbox, but for them, going PC day one with a live service game is a big deal. They haven't been doing PC day and date games ever, really. So it's like, okay, yeah, they're growing their strategy, but it's in a way that like is comfortable for their fans. The thing here is the fans are freaking out a little bit, and it is because I don't think that they fully grasp that these executives have been saying the truth for a while now, that they are not necessarily trying to win the console war. I mean, I said this on the show last week. I think that everyone's mostly accepted that when it comes to the PlayStation versus Xbox, PlayStation has won the console war. And for PlayStation, that doesn't mean like, okay, well, we can like wrap it up and now everything's going to be smooth sailing. There's a lot of question marks about, okay, what now? Like, we won, and to what end? But over on the Xbox side, it's like, okay, well, how are we going to grow sort of by moving around and flanking the console war? And that means a lot of decisions like this, I think, that they are just going to come up with ways that's like, traditionally, you would not do this if you were trying to win the console war. And they're just not trying to do that anymore. They're trying to make more money in other ways. It's just at the same time, it's like, how much of a dent is a Hi-Fi Rush on the Switch going to make on that? I don't know. That's why, for me, it comes back to this is about the game itself, about that series, and about that studio, and giving it the best chance going forward. And I think that that could be effective. But I don't know. If you are a Microsoft executive, though, Lexi, how do you message all of this? Because it's obviously like a tricky line to walk, trying to keep that sentiment of, hey, and keep investing in Xbox. And at the same time, Microsoft's like, well, we are investing in a bunch of different pies.
Yeah, I mean, like, I fucking love Hi-Fi Rush. It was in my top 10 games of last year. It's really, really good. And so I do, especially if what you're saying is right, if, like, Xbox management does like that studio and does like their outpush, I can definitely see, like, hey, the morale boost of more people playing your game is a good thing to have going around a studio. But I also know that if this happens, Phil Spencer is going to be in a million interviews come summertime, and there will be a lot of people being like, why are Xbox games coming to other platforms? I bought an Xbox. And, like, you know, he's very good at those interviews. As I'm sure you know, Phil Spencer is a very good person to give those answers and make it sound like everyone comes out winning and leaving you feeling pretty good about things. But it's still a awkward position to put yourself in come interview time, of people asking you that question of why are your games coming out on competitions. Even if you are saying, they're not our competition anymore, that's how a lot of people view it. That's how even people who aren't that into the gaming industry but know that there is an Xbox and there is a PlayStation and there is a Nintendo view the gaming industry. They view it as there's three competing brands. So yeah, I think that will be a hard needle to thread.
Yeah, it's it's very important for these companies to keep that fandom that does care about these things, if not happy, at least content to a certain degree, or invested. And because, as we always do on this show, going back to that Phil Spencer letter about, hey, these other third-party publishers have done a really poor job of making people understand their value beyond once upon a time. They're like, hey, we are the games that you can get when you go to a store. That was their value for a long time. And then that changed. And now it's very difficult to understand what is the value that Ubisoft brings and EA brings, other than they're capable of spending a lot of money on games. And for a lot of people, it's like, well, I'm just going to go on Steam and find something that's even more fun to play. I think Microsoft is like trying to like make sure that, hey, the people that do care about the investment in the Xbox hardware platform, we do want to keep them happy. But how do we like do that while we are changing the things that they kind of built their identity around? And at a certain point, it's like, I don't know if there's much you can do there. You kind of have to just like charge ahead and let them know that you are investing in other ways. And that means into Game Pass. But at a certain point, it's like, well, Hi-Fi Rush just going to the Switch. That has nothing to do with Game Pass. And it's like, yeah, you're right. But we just really care about Tango Gameworks and we care about Hi-Fi Rush. I don't know how they explain that. I think they will have a lot more of these headaches in the years ahead, especially if they continue waiting for like the big games that are supposed to be the answer to their overall problems. Like Starfield wasn't the answer. And now it's like, okay, well, Hellblade, and we'll talk about this in a second here. That'll be the next story. So we'll get to that actually in just a couple of minutes. Like Hellblade, is that going to be the answer? Well, we'll see. But if they have a bunch of bigger hits that, like, especially if they are, and they're going to be exclusive to Xbox, which they are very likely going to continue to be exclusive to Xbox and PC, that would lower some of the anxiety about some of these other decisions for these players. But in the meantime, like, if every single one of these little changes is going to hurt that much more to that fandom. And Microsoft doesn't really have an answer to that other than put out really good games, and that's taking time for them.
I am curious, with the next news, this segues into the next news story, with like survival horror being kind of in vogue again, at least from a critical point of view, with stuff like Dead Space and Resident Evil 4 and Alan Wake 2. Do you think that Microsoft management wants Tango to go back to the Evil Within style thing, take a third shot at it? Because I know people love the second one, and maybe they are of the opinion of, hey, maybe we just need to give them a bigger platform this time for it to break through and be something more akin to a Resident Evil or a modern Silent Hill.
Yeah, I think so. I think that they would want them to go back to survival horror, because I think survival horror is a pretty safe bet these days. Now, how much like does Microsoft's desires factor into what they tell their studios? I think they try to continue to give the studios a lot of creative freedom. And I don't think they're like, well, you're the survival horror studio, so go make one of those. I don't think they do that much. But I bet, Tango Gameworks, if they are pitching a project to work on, that could happen. I think Microsoft would be very encouraging of that and say, hey, we want one of those to be the identity of the Xbox platform. So we will invest heavily in it and give you the help you need. So yeah, I bet that's exactly the case. That's a genre that seems to just keep growing, and it doesn't just like it sells well. People do like come to games to play the scary games, and you can build a lot of that identity around games like that. If it's like, hey, this is the thing I play, and I'm going to play every single one of these. Yeah,
I mean, horror movies discovered that ages ago of like, right. Hey, there are just people who love horror genre stuff. Like, I love horror genre stuff, and once you have that inbuilt niche, it's a lot easier to get a guaranteed minimum amount of success out of it.
Yes, absolutely. All right, next story. Microsoft has very high expectation for Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. Is it Senua? Is that how you say it? Do you know? I always wanted to say Senua.
Senua's Saga.
Senua's Saga. Yeah. Okay. Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. They have high expectations. This comes from Jonas Maki at Game Reactor. Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice, was a brilliant and highly original game that combined a historic adventure with mental illness, all presented with the drop-dead gorgeous graphics. The expectations on the sequel have been high from the gaming community, and it seems like Microsoft themselves are expecting something really special as well. The fairly known and reliable insider and leaker, Nate the Hate, shout out to Nate the Hate for powering the news today, says that Microsoft has internal projections showing that Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 might be awarded with a review aggregate over 90 on Metacritic. While it's not clear whether it's based on internal or external mock reviews, it still shows that this might turn out to be the highest reviewed Xbox Game Studios title for quite some time, even if mock reviews aren't the same thing as real-life reviews. More than one publisher has been surprised before by lower than expected scores despite positive internal testing.
I mean, that publisher was literally Microsoft.
Right, yes.
With Redfall.
With Redfall, yes, exactly. Yeah, we'll see. You would expect them to, hey, if after Redfall, maybe they would change up their strategy of doing mock reviews. Of course, if people don't know, mock reviews, just reviews that companies run internally themselves, whether they have people on teams inside the studios that do that, or if they hire out external consultants.
Yeah, and sometimes there will be straight up journalists as well, who get paid a lot better to write a mock review than a real review. Just you can never publish it.
Yes, exactly. And then you can't review that game anywhere else. Well, not without violating some ethics. It is a... I'm always hesitant about like, okay, yeah, sure. So internally they have high expectations. They're seeing some good scores from these mock reviews. So you should set your expectations high as a fan. We still have no idea. We don't know. I'll say though, the amount of time that they put into Hellblade 2, the effort and the budget and the sort of the front-facing marketing that it's had, the like position in marketing that it's had, where it's like, this is a big deal. If the way that they treat it publicly like a big deal, they better have treated it as a big deal internally to the point where it had every opportunity to become the best game possible. And you know, that maybe that should be true of every game, but it feels especially true in this case. Does that ring true with you?
It's been either the first or the last thing shown at so many showcases that it feels like it has to be important to them.
Yeah.
And I have an interesting relationship with that first one. I played it when I myself was dealing with a lot of things, and it was recommended like, oh, you should play it with like headphones on so you can get like the full experience. And the 3D audio fucked me up. Mm-hmm. Having people whisper fucked me up. It was like a really fucking bad trip that lasted 8 hours. But yeah, that first game is pretty incredible at what it's trying to do. Whether that works for you or not is like very much dependent on whether you like those sort of cinematic action games, and also whether you're willing to deal with its not necessarily subtle approach to mental illness.
No, definitely
not. But I do think that those games are really evocative and really interesting. I think that studio, like, they released Bleeding Edge, they released Hellblade, and then the next game after that was like DMC Devil May Cry, not Ninja Theory, something else Ninja. The other one.
Wait, I'm sorry. What are you trying to remember?
The studio that is working on Senua's Sacrifice.
No, yeah. Yes, Ninja Theory.
Yes, Ninja Theory. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but they haven't released anything in ages, so it would be. I'm super I'm rooting for them. I hope that something good comes of it.
Yes, yeah, they've done a lot of games that like I think will build into this in the past. Like obviously Hellblade 1, but they've done Heavenly Sword, and you could see. Okay, you take a lot of what you built with Hellblade 1, and if you just add a little bit more flair to the combat, I suppose, you could have something that could be really, I think, it could fit in well with the modern AAA landscape really easily, especially if the visuals match what they've shown in promotional material so far. And it's like the whole game like looks that good. That could turn into something that people just want to have as a showcase. I'm still skeptical that it's going to be for me. Hellblade 1 definitely wasn't. Not that I think it's some bad game. It's just not for me. I bet we'll probably end up in a situation where Hellblade 2 also won't be for me. But hey, that doesn't mean it can't be some big a game that moves the needle for Microsoft. I'm just right now, I'm like, I will be very surprised if this gets over a 90 Metacritic. High 80s, I think that's possible for sure. But low 90s, that's a tough thing to pull off for just about any game. We'll
and I mean,
see.
that first game was such a surprise. When people played it, they went in with pretty low expectations. Because, again, like I'm looking at Ninja Theory's games that they released leading up to that. It was a VR rail shooter, Disney Infinity 3.0, Disney Infinity 2.0, Disney Infinity Marvel Superheroes, and then it was DMC. So like people were very hot and cold on Ninja Theory around that time.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's very hard to predict what you're going to get out of that studio. 100%. In terms of predicting what's going to come out of Microsoft Studios, though, Xbox Developer Direct may be happening later this month. This is something that I've kind of heard vaguely over the last couple of weeks. This is why, like, when people ask, hey, what are we going to get first? I'm like, probably a Developer Direct. Mike Straw at Insider Gaming is writing about exactly that. The next Developer Direct event is coming later this month. A new post on Reddit by user Xantorn, who has been accurate in revealing showcase events in the past, claims that the next Xbox Direct will happen during the week of January 14th. First Xbox event of the year is going to be the week of the 14th. Can't speak on the Shadow Drop rumors, but the date has now been set in stone, the post reads. Should it happen that week, it will likely be sometime between January 15th and 19th, as those are the weekdays for that week. It's unlikely Microsoft would hold an event at this point during the weekend. This comes just days after it was spotted online that a Developer Direct could be happening on January 25th. While we can't confirm the exact date and time just yet, Insider Gaming also understands that an event is scheduled to take place within the next couple of weeks, further adding credence to the rumors. Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think that all three companies have to start talking to us here pretty soon about this year. Nintendo can do their Direct in February, like always. I think that this Developer Direct sounds about right. And, dates for Hellblade 2 wouldn't be too surprising. There's a handful of other things that we could probably Avowed could easily show up here.
Microsoft have a bunch of things on the books slated for 2024, and they don't have any dates on them. They've Avowed, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, Hellblade, Towerborn, which looks pretty cool, an Age of Empires mobile game, Clockwork Revolution looks like it's a fair bit further out. Contraband we haven't heard anything about for a long time. Everwild is coming in 2030. Fable could either be really close or really far away. I've heard people talking about working on that game since like 2018.
Yep.
OD, The Outer Worlds 2, which again seems like it's probably a bit further away. Perfect Dark feels like could be fucking anywhere in development.
Who knows, exactly.
South of Midnight, we also have no real idea where that is.
That one could show up here, though, I think. Yeah. South of Midnight.
And State of Decay 3, it feels about right. For State of Decay 3 feels about time, but also we've been saying that for a while now, so who knows? Right,
and that studio's had key people leave, and I know they were trying to have like a sort of comeback after those key people left. I think they've struggled with the development of that game a little bit. There's a lot going on that they could update us about. So a Developer Direct, which, for people who don't know, that's like basically just a Nintendo Direct from Microsoft. They make it a little bit more, slightly more talky, but not that much more talky. It's a pretty fast-paced news presentation event from one of these companies. So yeah, they have a lot of stuff that could be in there. So it makes it really difficult to say this definitely will be and this definitely won't be. But like, as you laid it out there, it's a lot of stuff we already know about that we'll get updates on. Where do you think they come in with stuff that hasn't been announced yet? Do you think they have something that's like, here's something that's coming later this year, or maybe another shadow drop like they did last year with Hi-Fi Rush?
I feel like unannounced games are unlikely because they have so much stuff on the books for their different studios. Like, we know what most of the Xbox studios are working on to at least some degree, except for the Gears of War people. They haven't really said anything for ages. But I think something that we'll probably see a lot of at the show is partners, because they're obviously very close with Sega at the moment, and Sega have 2 games coming out in the next month. So it'd make a lot of sense to show Like a Dragon and show Persona 3.
Yep.
They also have that Metaphor ReFantasio whenever that's coming out. So I'd say we'll see a lot of like those style of partnerships, more updates than anything else. But yeah, I don't think January's just such a weird time to announce anything big. Because it's still kind of silly season in a lot of ways. People are still coming off the back of Game of the Year and are more than happy just to play their backlogs before the real new season starts up again.
Yep. And yeah, Mike's bringing up a chat that he says that he doesn't think they should have shadow dropped Hi-Fi Rush. People do tend to yell at him for that because people like shadow drops. But I think
they never do good sales numbers.
Yeah, I mean,
I've talked to indie game developers about this too, especially with Nintendo Directs. The thing that's been told to me is like, hey, if you're thinking about like shadow dropping your thing at a Nintendo Direct, just fucking don't. Just don't do it. Because it's never worth the missed out marketing. It's never worth the missed out wish lists and the missed out hype that you can build up, because that stuff does make a very real difference. Especially on things like Steam, where wish lists are so important. Like it really does build your base in an algorithm of having months of search engine optimization behind you and months of people looking up the release date, adding it to a wish list. All those things do actually add a tangible effect once the game comes out.
Yeah, I mean, in the search engines, and Steam at its heart is a search engine for games, and that algorithm is deeply based on the behaviors that that Steam has already witnessed for the game before it came out. That's how it decides to position games in your recommendations on the front page. So yeah, and indie games tend to sell very well on Steam. I would love to know what Microsoft actually thinks of how the shadow drop for Hi-Fi Rush went. I bet they think they could have done better had they given it like a month notice. I bet Metroid Prime Remastered did just fine as a shadow drop, but that's a Nintendo first party game. And I don't know, who knows? Maybe that would have sold even better had it had a couple months, like a month or two of promotion.
Yeah, even Sports Story didn't feel like it particularly benefited from a shadow drop.
Right.
Like people didn't know when that was coming out, and then they were like, "Oh, it's out now." And maybe that game would have done better with some marketing beforehand.
Would have done better if it was a better game. That's what that game
was disappointing. Yeah. It's real disappointing.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we got a handful more headlines to get through. We'll get to all of that right after this. And we're back, and it's time to talk about that little freaky dragon, Spyro. He's teasing fans with his tweets out there. This is from Vicky Blake at Eurogamer. A new tweet from
Grubb. I found some tweets from Spyro from 2013. We can't do this news story anymore.
Damn it! Okay, we're Figment. We're making we're going to Figment now, everybody. There we go.
Okay.
Okay. But apparently he's just teasing, saying, "Hey, 2024, it's time to believe," or some shit like that. What are they? You gotta believe. That's right. And that's the Spyro's 2024 motto. Does this mean we're getting a new Spyro game? Feels to be like, why would you do this unless we're getting a new Spyro? And also, a new Spyro seems like a good idea. What do you think?
Yeah, Skate 4, really energy coming off of this, of just like people willing this into existence. I feel like Spyro, like, especially in and around the UK, people never shut the fuck up about Spyro. I never got to play Spyro. I was more of a Sly Cooper kid myself.
Sure.
Because I was cool. And Spyro always seemed like kiddie shit for babies. But no, Spyro always seems like something that has like just a huge fan base. So why wouldn't you bring it back? Especially now if the owners of that IP may be more amenable to, actually making different games that aren't just Call of Duty. So who knows? Maybe.
Yeah. And I guess like tying this back into the last story, like a developer direct, like this is Activision, right? At this point, Spyro, that developer direct could be Activision's sort of coming out party under Microsoft, and like, hey, we are working on a ton of stuff now under Microsoft. Here's some stuff we had been working on that will now fit into the Xbox family, and here's a bunch of old Activision games that are getting backwards compatibility support on your Xbox, including like, we're going to put the Spyro collection into Game Pass, and that leads us into this announcement. Something like that could happen. I could see that. Spyro, I was never much of a Spyro player at the time. That Spyro remake trilogy, I played that, and it's like, okay, these games have their charm. They are, in my opinion, they're very simple, and I didn't fall in love with them, but they're still well-made games, and I wouldn't like, just like with Crash Bandicoot 4, but which I like, that's the Crash game I really like. I didn't like the other Crashes. I like Crash 4. I bet a Spyro getting made today by a team that cares about Spyro could make something that would be my favorite Spyro game. And so I love that. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, I think that it's one of those series that would benefit a lot from modernization. It's hard to go back to some of those platformers from that era when they were designed to be simpler at that time, whereas some of the more complicated ones like Jak and Daxter and Sly do feel slightly more engaging, but there is still plenty of room when you modernize them to add more stuff to them and just make them more diverse and interesting experiences like you saw with Crash 4, and just adding more mechanics.
Yep.
Essentially is
And kids like Spyro. My kids immediately latched onto Spyro. Not in the same way that they turned into Sonic freaks immediately, but they definitely.
I thought you were going to say Figment.
No, they want Figment to die. That's what they tell me every day. Punish the Figment dragon. Bring him to us so we may kill him. All right, up next. Actually, Mike, do you want to hop in and tell me about Final Fantasy 14? Because
I'm talking about Figment.
I'm not going to talk about it otherwise. So now's your opportunity. We got to say his name into the mirror 3 times. Michael Minotti.
Yeah. The thing about Figment is that he's a very good character that was created for. No. Well, yeah. What do you know about what happened with Final Fantasy 14, Jeff?
Here's what I know. Yesterday, you texted me, hey, we should talk about. You want me on the show tomorrow to talk about Final Fantasy 14? Like, oh, there was news about Final Fantasy 14. That's what I know.
There is news. They've been talking more about the Dantro expansion because they had a fan fest this weekend, and they announced one of the new jobs, which is Final Fantasy 14's classes, and it's Pictomancer. So it's a painter who can kill people.
Oh, is that what that word was referring to? I saw people saying the word Pictomancer, and I just ignored it.
A very normal word.
One of the most normal words.
Lex, do you have a question?
Mr. Minotti, question from the back. I saw someone on Twitter say that this new expansion is basically that Jon Favreau movie, Cowboys and Aliens. Is that true?
That's interesting. I actually saw that movie. What a forgettable movie. Well, so
I saw that trailer.
Same.
Final Fantasy 14's world map actually corresponds to the real world's map, and this is the first time we've headed to the Americas, right? Kind of focused largely more in like South and Latin, I think, which is why you get a lot of those kind of tropical vibes on all the trailers. But we have been seeing things now, locations that look like
anyway. So what's the new news
stuff? Well, I told you about the murderous painters, and that's based off of a character named Realm from Final Fantasy VI. So that's a fun callback.
Sure.
Also, we had lion people before, right? Tiger people, Rothgars. Now, but they were only men. Now we're getting women lion people, Jeff.
Okay. That I'm okay. I thought you were about to go lion, tigers, and bears, and we're gonna get bears. No. I'm like, oh my god, shut the hell up.
No. I'm the bear. But speaking of the tigers, they may or may not be muscle mommies. I'm still working on confirming this.
Okay. Please do the research for us. We demand it.
What? You said something about muscle mommies? What?
Yeah, now you're interested. Yeah, sorry. You lost your chance, Lex, to care. Too late.
I'm going back to sleep.
All right, that's good. But yes, so we got to see some exciting stuff for this expansion. People seem happy. It's fun. It's coming out this summer, but no specific date yet. I have been your Final Fantasy 14 reporter in the field, Mitch Tokoto, signing off.
Thank you, Mitch. All right, right back at it. Let's talk about crimes.
Yeah, let's do that.
Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is getting an unofficial PC port, and it already runs at 60 frames per second. This is from Francesco Di Maio at WCCF Tech. An unofficial Marvel Spider-Man 2 PC port is currently in the works, and it's already running great in its very early version. As reported today by PC Focus on Twitter, modders are reverse engineering the PC dev build of the game leaked last week to develop an unofficial
this
PC.
Is super illegal.
This is a super crime, yes. An unofficial PC port, which is already running at 60 frames per second, although without textures and interface elements. While it's obviously full of glitches right now, what these developers have already accomplished with this unofficial port is extremely impressive. And I'll add, extremely illegal. This is just straight up using stolen source code to then put out copyrighted material on another platform. I have
some
to
Jalico shit.
Yes.
This is like some this is some loading some shit into your Super Nintendo with a mysterious cartridge you got like at this yard sale. This is fun.
And like you know who's out, you know who else is going to make a PC port of this game? Fucking Sony. And if you do this, they could be like, "Hey, you've caused us material damages to the money we would have made."
They should just start selling this. Why the fuck not?
Yeah,
just fucking go
you're
for
right.
it. If you're
going to do this, you might as well. Fucking, you're going to need that money eventually here when they fucking sue you out of existence. Hey, have your fun, everybody, but at a certain point, you gotta just maybe walk away from some things. Whatever. Who knows? Maybe Sony will just be like, let's not bring attention to this and ignore it. I doubt that'll happen. I bet their lawyers are readying a lawsuit as we speak. A cease and desist is certainly coming. But yeah, I would even recommend probably avoid even playing these things because that source code, you never know. Like, I mean, they'll have cracks on it and stuff to stop it from like calling home. But you just never know how serious Sony's going to be about something like this. We haven't seen many examples of something like this happen before, and they might want to set a very harsh precedent right away. So I would probably just avoid this altogether if I were you.
I'm not sure if you saw the Did You Know Gaming video on Gaming Leaks, but one of the things that Liam Robertson went into detail in that was the Half-Life leak. And basically how, like, American police were basically trying to trick the guy who leaked the source code to come to America so that they could arrest him.
Yeah, Gabe was like, yeah, we'll give you a job. Come to America for your last interview. Yeah.
Yeah, they pretended to offer him a job, which just incredible acting work from Gabe. But yeah, that whole video is actually really good. It's worth a watch. But yeah, when it gets to this level of sensitive information, and like when you consider the other information that was in with that game, even if you take away all the stuff about the game and say that they don't actually care that much about people pirating that version of the game, it was still released alongside people's like passport information and people's personal documentation, and so they are going to be extremely litigious around anything that touches it, because of course they are. Like, ultimately, Sony fucked up by allowing this to get leaked and get hacked. It was their cybersecurity that wasn't up to snuff. So yeah, they're going to be very litigious around any of this. Yep,
I would be. I'd be hesitant to just get involved in any way, especially if it like ends up like, oh, the only way you can get this is on a torrent site. You can't download a torrent usually without also like sharing it back up, which makes you complicit in distributing it. So just be careful.
And you've never committed a crime, so you'd never do this anyway.
Exactly. That's 100% right, Lexi. You know me so well. PlayStation 4 Pro has rolled over 14.3 million units as of 2020. I think is when the year they actually have this number from. This comes from Shamir Safaraz at Xputer. Many gamers during the last gen were curious about how PlayStation 4 would stand out in the competitive scene. It apparently sold a gargantuan number, according to Shamir here. A recent report by Mega X0 at Install-Base Forums confirms that the PS4 Pro sold an impressive 14.3 million units. That number is as of January 2020. So let's just round it up to 15 million. It's probably not even 15 million because in January 2020, we're like looking at down the barrel of the gun of the you know what? It probably is 15 million because I guess the 2020 we didn't get to PS5 until later that year, and I think PS4 Pro was selling pretty well throughout that time. And people, especially as the pandemic was coming, people are trying to get a lot more out there. This is pretty good. It's not like huge numbers, but if we look at if the thing came out in 2016, right? So that goes to 2017, 2018, 2019. It's about 3.5 years for 15 million. That's 5 million units per year. That's pretty good. It's not like it took over the whole market, but that's good.
I think the thing that you need to remember is that probably a shockingly high percentage of these sales are people buying their second PlayStation.
Yes, 100%.
And like a person who's going out to just buy a PlayStation is probably just going to buy a PlayStation. A person going out to buy a PlayStation Pro has probably already been playing PlayStation games for a long time. So I would be really curious to see how many of these people had already bought a base PlayStation, and at that point you can just add those on as bonus sales that Sony weren't going to get if they never made this product in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, so that's 15% of the PlayStation 4 install base, around there essentially. And I mean, listen, I wouldn't be surprised if we found out. Yeah, that's basically means 15% of the PlayStation audience are these very hardcore people that buy another PlayStation when Sony puts out another PlayStation. There's going to be obviously wiggle room there, but I wouldn't be surprised if it actually is just that number, 15%. And so, like you said, it's bonus money, and it's finding ways to continue to monetize and grow your install base using the people most likely to spend money, and that probably explains why we're getting a PS5 Pro. 15%.
It's free real estate.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's free real estate. Why not just take it? 15% of players coming in, spending that money again, and growing your install base, sending their old PS4s or PS5s out into the wild, probably doing trade-ins at GameStop or whatever to get a PS5 Pro so they could save money themselves. It just continues to like churn and make that market more larger in a lot of different ways and more dynamic. So yeah, it doesn't have to be like the new standard default thing that everyone's buying. That did not happen with the PS4. It's almost certainly not going to happen with the PS5. Like the Call of Duty bundle will be PS5, not PS5 Pro. Going forward, things like that. And obviously they probably won't have the Call of Duty deal, but that example, because most new people coming into the market will just want to get the cheaper version that they know runs the games that they want. So yeah, it's like when we try to define what is success for these Pro models, it's I think it's hard to do, but I think this is probably exactly what they wanted from this thing. Do you think that there's any disappointment inside of Sony for this thing?
I don't know, like the sentiment always seemed to be that they liked it because it allowed them to show off nicer versions of the game when they were
sure.
Like ultimately, whenever someone makes a review of a game, or whenever a critic like you or me talks about it, almost always it would have been on a PS4 Pro when the PS4 was the only thing out, because it's our job to be on top of these things and to own the latest hardware. And so they probably were pretty happy with the idea that, like, okay, well, the people who are reviewing these games are reviewing them on better hardware than maybe the people who are playing the majority of them. But that alleviates a lot of the, if games weren't looking great on the base PS4 and they were running at 60 on a PS4 Pro, suddenly that's not a bullet point against you in a review because someone just didn't play it on a base PS4. And I think that paired with looking at how many of these sales are double dips and looking at the fact that they can then also go to developers and say, hey, we have this more powerful machine that will allow you to utilize all of your tech learnings as the generation goes on. I think the PS4 Pro does a good job at keeping the right people happy. And that's kind of its job. Its job isn't necessarily be the best seller. It's to, make everyone feel better about the console generation.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a big part of it is, at least this is one of the check marks when they're justifying the project overall, right? It's like, hey, this is going to improve sentiment. It will answer a lot of the questions, like you said, when people are like, oh my God, this game runs better on another platform. Well, it's like, no, now we have a solution for that. If you really care about that, just go get the PS4 Pro. If you really care about 4K 60 frames per second, just go get the PS5 Pro. Although we'll see if games run at 4K and 60 frames per second even on the PS5 Pro. But if that's what you really care about, go get that now. And if you don't care about that, well, we still get the benefit of all those awesome marketing screenshots and videos of the game running great on PlayStation. And yeah, you're right. I think that's it factors into the considerations.
if they do a PS5 Pro, will they put 8K on that box too?
Oh, 100%. Yes. I mean, because if it can output 8K, that's the bigger number. They're not going to put the smaller number on there. And if they could put a bigger number on there, they will.
Before the end of this generation, will we see a single game output at 8K?
I think didn't the Tourist run at 8K, the one the Tourist that's spelled with a Y.
Right.
It's like a 2D game that they I think they put that out as like it can run at like 8K and 60 frames per second or something like that. Maybe it was 30 frames per second at 8K. I can't remember HDMI 2.1's specs exactly, but I think a couple of games had something like that. So there's your answer. Basically, no, though. Really, no. Yes. All right. You know what? We're going to just hit these last two headlines really quick. Netflix is reportedly exploring adding in-game ads to its gaming service. Just what everyone's been asking, right, Lexi?
Oh, God. I was playing Into the Breach on my phone, a great way to play such a small screen game. Just everything looks fucking terrible on it, and I just thought this would be so much better if I was also getting an ad for a fake video game. And then some YouTube guy started talking to me saying, "You want me to play a fake video game?" And then he started playing the fake video game. Like that would be my game of the year if they could somehow do that for me. But yeah.
It's incredible, like those ads where it's like playing the top 5 games people say are fake. Oh, this one looks real. Shut up, TikToker. I hate you. Please stop. All right, other one. Activision finally admits that there was definitely discrimination at Activision. Some executives there said, yes, of course. You'll never guess against who, though, Lexi. Old white guys. This is from Ben Lyons at Game Reactor. There have been some truly horrifying stories coming out of late of Activision after they finally let Bobby Kotick go. There have been a slew of sexism and racism reports from developers past and present. And now to add to this, a new report has revealed that Activision didn't even seem to limit its discrimination to certain minorities because Law 360 has stated that a former Activision executive is currently looking to sue the publisher, accusing it of age discrimination and violating the state of California's whistleblower protection law.
Good on them for discriminating against the majority.
Yeah, right. It's not illegal if you discriminate against everybody. Oh, wait, It is actually still? Okay, never mind.
The minority has been getting too much attention for too long. Time to discriminate against the majority.
The suit comes from a 57-year-old tech executive who was employed at Activision between 2014 and the summer of 2023. And the lawsuit claims that Kotick made statement at a leadership conference where he revealed that the problem at the company was that there are too many old white guys. Oh, my God.
Do you want to know the most upsetting thing about this story? I literally cannot imagine Bobby Kotick saying that sentence.
Yeah, I mean, even if he's like saying it in like, to like, he's preaching to the choir. Someone who's like, hey, what about diversity? And he's like, yeah, maybe we have too many old white guys. But the second sentence there, the unsaid sentence, isn't we're going to get rid of all the old white guys. It's we might just hire someone else that looks a little different once. That's all he's maybe actually getting at if he ever actually said this. But boy, I don't know. Maybe we should discriminate against old white guys if they're this fucking fragile, Lexi. I just can't stand it anymore.
It's so fucking, like, how great would it be if after all these years, this was the thing that got him?
That would actually, okay, never mind. That would actually rule. I would love that. That'd be incredible. All right. You know what? We got to get a move on here. I have a poll question coming from last Friday. I don't remember ever posting this. I think maybe Sean did or Jan did. Thank you to whoever did. But we'll get to that here in a second. While I get that set up, Lexi, why don't you tell people where they can find you, what we have going on, and all of that good stuff?
You can find me at basically Lexi on Twitter, both of those words with eyes at the end. I am currently reviewing an embargoed game that I can't talk about, but I am very excited to talk about, so look forward to that later in the month. I will have stuff. Yeah, I'm not working on too much at the moment, actually, which is nice for a change. Suppose for the site, you'll have Blight Club, you'll have stuff like that on throughout the week. I'm pretty sure Mike is going to be playing some bad video games because Dan's injured, and now that I've said that, it has to happen, right?
That's right. That's how it works. You laid down the law, Lexi. So if you said it, it must be true.
Yeah.
All right, got that poll question. Here we go. If PS5 only has Metal Gear Solid Delta, Silent Hill 2 Remake, and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth in 2024, is that enough for you? 32% said yes, and 68% said no. I think that's a pretty good lineup, and I don't think they need much more than that to make most of the rest of that audience happy. I get it, because those are, I think Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, just calling that a remake, even though I guess that's what Square Enix calls it, a little bit like underselling it, but people are like, hey, I don't want just remakes. Give me something new. Sony's definitely going to have that. They've already said that they'll have some new games, Fair Games and Concord, things like that. And then they'll probably have some stuff that they haven't fully confirmed for 2024 yet. But I don't know. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think I'm just curious about what they are doing. I know on the podcast or on the Bombcast with Vengeance, you were talking about, Sony being quite predictable at the moment. But ultimately, we have no idea what games they have on the slate apart from a couple of those live service games. And I'm really curious to see anything that isn't a live service game, unless it is, of course, just like, oh, we're doing sequels to God of War and The Last of Us, and that's all. God, I would kill for something new from Sony just to see what it is. Because I like those cinematic action games enough. I think they're fine. But it would just be really interesting to see a new franchise for once. Right.
I was gonna be like, hey, Rise of Ronin, and then it's like, oh wait, that's a cinematic action game.
Yeah.
So yeah, babe, at least I think Rise of Ronin looks cool to
Team
me.
Ninja, right?
I can't keep them all straight at this point. There's been a handful of those games. I think you're right, but I can't keep them all straight anymore because there's just a lot of different of those sort of Eastern looking action games from a bunch of different places. I think you're right though. Now I'm trying to pull from my brain. All right, let's see here. We have a new poll question here in a moment. Before we get to that though, let's talk about what's happening on Giant Bomb. You mentioned Blight Club. That will be happening this week. I got a new Xbox 360, so it should work this time. You should still watch that.
Again?
What's that?
You're starting again? You're starting again from
I am
the top?
transferring my saves. We'll do that process live so that we can have the drama of whether or not it's going to work. We'll make that the first part of Blight Club this week.
God, how good would it be if the whole last episode was your Xbox breaking? The whole next episode is you going to be trying to transfer save, and that's all Blight Club becomes is troubleshooting.
I've got a USB stick, so we should be good. And Sean says, "Oh no, he's going to fuck this up." Maybe I will. And then the punishment will be I have to start that game over. And then the real punishment is hearing Mike complain about having to start that game over.
I think you'll find, because I was here when this rule was written, was if you can't complete your game, you have to play Bart versus the Space Mutants in your own time.
That's if you give up on the game. I'm going to see this game through, so I would just start the game over.
I would say this counts as a DQ. This counts as pulling out of the race halfway through. You're not allowed to restart the race, Grubb.
Well, that's definitely not a rule yet, but who knows? It could be. We'll see. I'll play Bart versus the Space Mutant. That's just a stupid game where you have to look everything up, and I guess he said you can't look shit up. If I do it on my own time, he would be able to stop me. So yeah, God, I can't actually. It would drive me crazy if I was put in a hyperbolic chamber and wasn't allowed to look anything up for Bart versus the Space Mutant. That actually would be the worst way to play. I was
watching some of the Atari 50 stuff with my. I was watching some of the Atari 50 stuff with my dad, and Gary Kitchen shows up in it, and I just had to bottle up to myself of it's the Bart versus the Space Mutant asshole. Fuck that guy. Why is he here?
Your dad didn't care about that tidbit? That's weird.
Yeah, it passed him by.
All right, new poll question that we will get to on Game Mess Mornings on Wednesday. So we got the Bombcast tomorrow. So on Wednesday, we'll talk about, did you buy a PS4 Pro? Yes or no? It's not scientific. Just curious to see what this audience says. Did you buy a PS4 Pro? Whether it was your second PlayStation or not, whether it was your first PlayStation 4, just tell me yes or no. Did you buy a PS4 Pro? We'll talk about that on Wednesday. Like I said, speaking of Giant Bomb, anything else that we should mention this week? We'll probably have some fun stuff. A lot of it's going to depend on what comes out of this meeting here soon.
Community Game of the Year results went up.
That's right. Check that out. Marino's got the Community Game of the Year results posted right now, so check all that out. In the meantime, Lexi, thank you so much for spending today talking with me about video games. I really appreciate it.
Anytime.
Thank you all for watching. You're the best audience of gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye. Okay,